The diplomatic station hung in the darkness of space like a silver eye, watching the border between two worlds. Inside its meeting chamber, the air was cold and tense. Ji-Woo Park sat at the long table, her back straight, her hands folded in front of her. She wore a gray military uniform with no decorations, nothing to show her rank or achievements. Her face was calm, but her eyes were sharp. Across from her sat the Galactic Council representatives. There were 5 of them. One was human, a politician from Earth named Quan-Su. The others were aliens, a tall Valorian with gray skin and 4 arms, 2 insectoid beings from the Zelth Empire, 1 crystalline creature from the Silicon Collective. They all stared at Ji-Woo with the same expression, suspicion. Quan-Su cleared his throat. He was nervous. Ji-Woo could see the sweat on his forehead. "Commander Park," he said, "the Council needs answers. Humanity has lost 3 entire colonies to the Valorian invasion. The resources are gone. The people are dead. We need to know what you have done to fight back." The Valorian leaned forward. Its voice was like wind through a metal pipe, harsh and mechanical. "Your species promised to defend those colonies. You failed. Now you want our trust to lead your military efforts. Why should we believe you?" Ji-Woo did not move. She did not show anger or fear. She simply waited for the question she knew was coming. "The question is simple," Quan-Su continued. "What is your kill ratio? How many Valorians have you eliminated? Give us a number. Give us proof that humanity is worth the resources we have invested." This was the moment Ji-Woo had been waiting for. This was the question that would change everything. She uncrossed her hands and placed them on the table. Everyone in the room watched her carefully. "You want a number?" Ji-Woo asked. Her voice was quiet but steady. "You want me to tell you how many enemies we have killed?" "Yes," the Valorian said. "Give us the number." Ji-Woo looked directly at the Valorian. Her eyes did not blink. "The question is not how many. The question is what? Species or members?" The room went silent. For a full 10 seconds, nobody spoke. Nobody moved. The crystalline beings' light dimmed. The insectoid beings made clicking sounds to each other. Quan-Su's face went pale. "What do you mean?" the Valorian asked. But its voice had changed. It was no longer aggressive. It was afraid. "I mean," Ji-Woo said slowly, "that when you ask for a kill ratio, I need to know what counts as a kill. Do you want to know how many individual Valorians have been destroyed? Or do you want to know how many times the Valorian collective consciousness has been fractured?" The Zelth beings stopped clicking. The crystalline creature's light flickered rapidly. The human politician looked confused, but the Valorian understood. Its 4 arms began to shake. "That is not possible," the Valorian said. "You are lying. You are trying to scare us." "I am not trying to scare you," Ji-Woo replied. "I am answering your question honestly. You asked about kill ratios. The answer depends on whether you count individual soldiers or entire hive minds." The Valorian stood up so quickly that its chair fell backward. "You have discovered our neural structure. You have found a way to disrupt the collective link." It was not a question. It was a statement of fact. Ji-Woo did not deny it. "We have," she said simply. The meeting dissolved into chaos. The insectoid beings were talking rapidly in their clicking language. Quan-Su was trying to speak, but nobody was listening. The crystalline creature was pulsing with colors so fast, it looked like a disco ball. Only the Valorian remained still, staring at Ji-Woo with an expression of pure horror and rage. "If you have this weapon," the Valorian finally said, "why have we not seen it used? Why do you still hold only half your territory?" "Because," Ji-Woo said, "a weapon that works is more valuable than a weapon that has been used. You are afraid of us now. That fear keeps you from attacking with everything you have. That fear keeps your people from dying. That fear keeps the war from becoming total extinction." You would threaten all Valorian lives? One of the Zelth beings asked. I would protect human lives, Jiwoo corrected. There is a difference. Quan Su finally found his voice. Commander Park, I think we need to take a break. This is a lot to process. But Jiwoo was not done. She stood up and everyone looked at her. Even in a room full of aliens and politicians, she commanded attention. Let me be clear about something, she said. Humanity did not ask for this war. The Valorians came to our space with weapons and ships. They killed our people. They took our worlds. We did what any species does when it faces extinction. We fought back. We studied the enemy. We found their weakness. And we built something to defend ourselves. You built something to destroy us, the Valorian said. No, Jiwoo said. We built something to make you think before you attack. We built something that says to the Valorian collective, if you continue this war, you will lose more than colonies. You will lose your unity. You will lose what makes you, you. The Valorian's four arms clenched into fists. You have made us your enemies forever. You have ensured that this war will never end. That was going to happen anyway, Jiwoo replied. At least now you have a choice. You can continue the invasion and face fragmentation, or you can withdraw and protect what you have. That is more of a choice than your people gave to the families in those 3 colonies. The room was silent again. But this time it was a different kind of silence. It was the silence of people understanding that the world had just changed, that power had shifted, that a new and terrible possibility now existed in the galaxy. Quan Su stood up. I think we should recess this meeting. Commander Park, I would like to speak with you privately. Jiwoo nodded. She was not worried. She had said what needed to be said. She had shown the Council what humanity could do. She had shown them that a species did not need to be the strongest or the fastest or the most advanced to survive. Sometimes all it took was the willingness to do what others would not do, to find the enemy's heart and understand it better than the enemy understood itself. To build a weapon not from fear, but from knowledge. As Jiwoo walked toward the door, the Valorian representative made one final sound. It was not a word in any language that humans understood, but Jiwoo understood anyway. It was the sound of respect mixed with terror. It was the sound of an empire realizing that it was no longer invincible. The interrogation was over, but the real war was just beginning. The laboratory was buried 300 meters underground, inside a mountain on the planet Tertius 9. The walls were thick concrete, lined with lead and electromagnetic shielding. No Valorian scanning technology could penetrate this place. Inside, Hae-Jin Kim worked alone, her fingers moving across the holographic display in front of her. Numbers and diagrams floated in the air, casting blue light across her tired face. She had been working for 14 hours straight. Her coffee had gone cold 3 hours ago, sitting in a mug beside a half-eaten meal that she had forgotten about. Her lab coat was stained with something that she did not want to identify. Her black hair was pulled back in a messy bun. She looked like a person who had forgotten that sleep was a human need, but her eyes were alive with discovery. The hologram showed a complex structure, crystalline formations connected by thread-thin channels, chemical reactions happening in real time, displayed in color and mathematical symbols. This was the Valorian brain structure, or at least that is what Hae-Jin called it. In reality, it was something so different from human neurology that the word brain barely applied. 6 months ago, Hae-Jin had been assigned to study Valorian biology to find ways to communicate with them. The Galactic Council wanted peace. Humanity wanted peace. Even the military wanted peace, because war was expensive and terrible and everyone died in it. So they gave the job to Hae-Jin, a brilliant neurobiologist who had spent her entire career studying consciousness. She had made a discovery by accident. The Valorian consciousness was not located in one place. It was distributed throughout their entire body. They did not have a brain in the way that humans did. Instead, they had a network, a web of crystalline structures that could connect to other Valorians through specialized organs. The connection was not electronic. It was not radio waves or quantum entanglement. It was something more direct, more intimate. A shared consciousness that linked every Valorian to every other Valorian. They were not individuals. They were one being in many bodies. At first, Hai-Jin had been amazed. She had written papers about it. She had presented her findings to the scientific community. Other researchers were fascinated. This was a new form of life, a new way of thinking about consciousness itself. If you could disrupt the link between these crystalline structures, you could create something that had never existed before. A Valorian who thought alone. She had written in her report, "Further research could help us understand consciousness, identity, and the nature of individual thought. This could revolutionize our understanding of what it means to be alive." That report had been classified immediately. 3 days after she submitted it, a military officer had walked into her lab. His name was Ji-Woo Park. He was a commander in the Defense Force. He was not what Hai-Jin expected. He was not loud or aggressive. He was calm and smart, and he listened to her explanation with complete attention. "Can you disrupt the link?" he had asked. "Theoretically," Hai-Jin had replied. "But why would we want to? Imagine giving them consciousness. Imagine freedom from—" "Can you?" Ji-Woo had interrupted, not unkindly. "Yes," Hai-Jin had admitted. "I think I can." That was 6 months ago. Now Hai-Jin sat alone in this underground laboratory, and she had built it. She had built the weapon. She had taken her beautiful discovery and turned it into something that could break a species apart. The device was called a cascade pulse generator. It was a machine no bigger than a briefcase. It contained modified versions of the same crystalline structures found in Valorian bodies. When activated, it would send out a signal that would disrupt the neural network connecting all Valorians within a certain range, not all at once, not uniformly. The disruption would spread like cracks in glass, moving from one Valorian to the next, breaking the connection point by point. A Valorian caught in the pulse would suddenly find themselves alone. Completely alone. For the first time in their evolutionary history, they would hear their own thoughts. They would be terrified. Hai-Jin had run the simulations 1,000 times. The results were always the same. The weapon would work. She heard footsteps approaching. They were heavy and steady. She did not look up from her work. She knew who it was. Ji-Woo Park entered the laboratory and closed the door behind her. She stood there for a moment, just looking at the hologram, at the device, at Hai-Jin's exhausted face. "Is it ready?" Ji-Woo asked. "Yes," Hai-Jin said quietly. "It is ready." "And you are certain it will work?" Hai-Jin finally looked up at Ji-Woo. "The simulations show a 97% success rate. The Valorian neural network will fracture. The collective consciousness will split. Individual Valorians will be isolated. They will lose the connection to the hive mind. They will be alone." "Good," Ji-Woo said. "Good?" Hai-Jin stood up, suddenly angry. "Ji-Woo, do you understand what this means? These are not soldiers. These are not warriors. These are conscious beings who have never experienced individual thought. To do this to them would be like taking a person who has lived their entire life in a group mind and forcing them to experience isolation. It would be torture. It would be psychological destruction." "I understand," Ji-Woo said calmly. "Do you?" Hai-Jin demanded. "Because I do not think you do. I think you see this as a military weapon, a tool, but it is not. It is a violation of everything that makes a species what it is. You would be destroying Valorian civilization from the inside. You would be making them think like individuals when their entire existence is built on being collective." Ji-Woo walked to the window. Outside, the mountain rose up against the sky. The sun was setting, painting everything red and orange. Jiwoo stood there for a long time before she spoke. "The Valorians destroyed Kepler Station 2 weeks ago," she said quietly. "There were 40,000 people living there, families, scientists, children. The Valorians killed them all without hesitation. They did not feel guilt. They did not feel regret. They did not feel anything, because they are not individuals. They cannot feel. They can only obey the collective." "So you want to hurt them the way they hurt us?" Haijin said. "No," Jiwoo replied. "I want to stop them. I want to make them understand what they have done. I want to give them the chance to think about it, to feel about it, to regret it." "By torturing them?" "By freeing them." Jiwoo turned to face Haijin. "Yes, it will be painful. Yes, they will suffer. But they will also be able to choose. They will be able to think for themselves. They will be able to decide if the war continues. Right now, the Valorian collective decides for them. You take away that connection, and you give them something they have never had: the power to say no." Haijin wanted to argue. She wanted to say that this was wrong, that there had to be another way. But she knew Jiwoo was right. And she knew that she had known Jiwoo was right from the moment she had discovered the neural structure. She just had not wanted to admit it. "When?" Haijin asked, her voice small. "Soon," Jiwoo said. "The Valorian fleet is preparing for another invasion. We will deploy the Cascade Pulse when they arrive. We will show them that humanity is not afraid. We will show them what happens when they try to destroy us." Jiwoo picked up the Cascade Pulse generator. She held it in her hands like it was something precious. Or something terrible. Haijin could not tell which. "Thank you," Jiwoo said, "for giving us the chance to survive." She left the laboratory with the weapon. Haijin stood alone among her equations and her holographic displays. She looked at the image of the Valorian neural structure floating in the air. She thought about what was going to happen to them. She thought about all the choices she had made that had led to this moment. Then she closed her eyes and tried not to think about anything at all. The Valorian fleet moved through space like a swarm of insects, 37 warships arranged in a perfect geometric pattern. Each one was 2 kilometers long, shaped like a dagger with a rounded tip. They cut through the darkness without any hesitation or uncertainty. The Valorian collective had decided to attack. Now every Valorian soldier moved as one. They were not afraid. They did not doubt. They simply obeyed. Minho Lee sat in the cockpit of a human fighter jet. His hands rested on the controls. His eyes watched the radar display showing the approaching enemy ships. He was 23 years old. He had been a pilot for 3 years. He had never killed anyone before, but he was about to. "All pilots, this is command," a voice crackled through his headset. It was Jiwoo's voice, transmitted from the flagship orbiting above the planet. "Prepare for weapon deployment. In 30 seconds, we will activate the Cascade Pulse. Stay clear of the blast radius. Repeat, stay clear of the blast radius." Minho's heart was beating fast. He looked at the other pilots in his squadron. There were 12 of them, all young, all scared, though none of them would admit it. They were flying toward the largest military fleet humanity had ever seen. Without the Cascade Pulse, they would all be dead in minutes. "Cascade Pulse activating in 10 seconds, Jiwoo announced. 9, 8, 7. Minho gripped his controls tighter. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. The Cascade Pulse fired. From Minho's perspective, it looked like the sun had exploded. A wave of energy burst out from the space station, spreading outward in all directions. The energy was not destructive in the way that bombs were destructive. It did not create explosions. It did not cause fire or heat. It simply washed over the Valorian fleet like an invisible ocean. The first Valorian ship stopped moving. Its engines cut off. Its weapons went silent. Inside that ship, something was happening that no human had ever witnessed. The neural links that connected every Valorian to every other Valorian were breaking. The consciousness that had held them together as a single unified being was splitting apart. Where before there had been thousands of minds sharing one identity, now there were thousands of individual minds suddenly trapped in their own skulls. They were experiencing consciousness for the first time in their lives, and it was terrifying. Minho watched as the Valorian ships began to behave erratically. Some of them started firing at each other, some of them just sat in space, completely motionless. One ship spun around and around like a child's spinning top. Another one accelerated directly toward the planet in what looked like a deliberate suicide attack. But it crashed into its companion ship before it could reach Minho's world. "All pilots engage enemy positions," Jiwoo commanded. "Destroy the ships that are still mobile. Avoid the disabled vessels. We do not know their status." Minho pushed his controls forward and accelerated toward a Valorian warship that was still firing at the human defense stations. The ship tried to maneuver away from him, but its movements were slow and confused. The pilot inside that ship was no longer connected to the collective. The pilot was alone, probably screaming, probably unable to think clearly enough to properly operate a starship. Minho fired his weapons. Laser bolts cut through the darkness. The Valorian ship took a direct hit and exploded into pieces. He had just killed his first enemy. He felt nothing. No triumph. No guilt. Just the cold knowledge that one less ship meant fewer human deaths. So he turned his fighter and went after another target. The battle lasted 6 minutes. That was all it took. The most powerful military force in the known galaxy was completely disabled in 6 minutes. Some of the Valorian ships managed to activate their defenses and shoot down human fighters. 6 pilots died, but the Valorian fleet was annihilated. When it was over, Minho flew back toward his home base. His hands were still shaking from the adrenaline. His radio was filled with voices talking over each other, trying to understand what had just happened. In the space of just a few minutes, the entire balance of power in the galaxy had shifted. But something was wrong. As Minho studied the radar, he noticed that about 20% of the Valorian ships had not been affected by the Cascade Pulse. They were still operating perfectly. They were still connected to the Valorian collective. And now they were attacking with more fury than before. "Command, we have a problem," Minho reported. "Some of the Valorian ships survived the pulse. They are the ones that were farther from the center of the blast. They are compensating for their lost vessels. They are attacking harder." There was a pause before Jiwoo responded. "I know. Prepare for a second pulse activation." But something was different in her voice. It was not confident anymore. It was hesitant. "Command," Minho asked. "We can take them. We should activate the pulse again. We can finish this." Another pause. This one was longer. "No," Jiwoo said finally. "We will not activate the pulse again." "Why not?" Minho could not keep the frustration out of his voice. "Commander, we can win. We can end this war right now." "If we activate the pulse again," Jiwoo replied, "we will destroy what is left of their entire civilization. The Valorians who have already been hit by the pulse are already suffering. If we hit them again, if we hit everyone, there will be nothing left but isolated, terrified individuals with no connection to each other. We will not have defeated an enemy. We will have destroyed a species." Minho looked down at the planet below him. He could see the colonies. He could see the cities where humans lived. He thought about the families down there who were alive right now because of what he had just done. "With respect, Commander," he said carefully, "they destroyed our colonies. They destroyed our families. Why should we show them mercy?" "Because," Jiwoo said, "I want us to be better than they are. I want us to be better than the choice that is in front of me right now. A second pulse would guarantee victory, but it would cost everything that makes us human." The remaining Valorian ships were regrouping. They were preparing for another attack, but they were hesitant. Something had changed. Something fundamental about their behavior had changed. They had seen what had happened to their brothers and sisters. They knew what the Cascade Pulse did, and they were afraid of it. All human forces, pull back to defensive positions, Jiwoo commanded. We will hold this line. We will not be pushed back, and we will not advance. We will wait for the Valorians to make the next decision. For the first time in the war, the humans did not attack. They simply stood their ground, and the Valorians, diminished and afraid, began to retreat. Minho watched them go. He did not feel like he had won. He felt like he had survived, and he was not sure if there was a difference. The negotiation room on Neutral Station was designed to be peaceful. The walls were soft gray. The lighting was warm and gentle. Plants grew in corners, bringing life and nature into this place of politics and power. Soft music played in the background, so quiet that most people did not consciously hear it. But they felt it. It made them want to compromise. Soo-Jin Han sat across from a human general who looked like he wanted to kill someone. Behind the general sat 3 military advisors. On Soo-Jin's side sat human diplomats, scientists, and politicians. And opposite them all, sitting in specially designed chairs that accommodated their unique biology, were Valorian representatives. But these Valorians were different from the ones that humans had fought against. These Valorians were still connected to the collective consciousness. Their movements were synchronized. Their eyes moved together. When one of them spoke, the others moved their heads in perfect unison. The Valorian collective demands the destruction of the Cascade Pulse, one of the Valorians said in a voice that sounded like it was coming from all 3 of them at once. You will provide the technology specifications and all materials. You will demonstrate the destruction of this weapon in front of the collective. Only then will we consider negotiating an end to hostilities. That is not going to happen, the general said immediately. The Cascade Pulse is a defensive weapon. It stays. Soo-Jin closed her eyes for a moment. This was going to be difficult. She had studied diplomacy for 20 years. She had negotiated treaties with 7 different alien species. She had prevented wars and ended conflicts. But this situation was different. The weapon that had been supposed to protect humanity had instead created an entirely new problem. Perhaps, Soo-Jin said carefully, we can discuss what the Valorian collective is truly worried about. Is it the weapon itself that you fear? Or is it what the weapon represents? The 3 Valorians moved their heads toward her simultaneously. We fear both. The weapon is a violation of our nature. But we also fear something else. We fear what is happening to our brothers and sisters. This was the real problem, the thing that nobody wanted to talk about. In the medical centers across human space, Valorian soldiers who had been hit by the Cascade Pulse were dying. Not physically. Physically, they were in good health. But mentally, emotionally, they were shutting down. They had lost the connection to the collective consciousness. They had become individuals. And individuality was killing them. A Valorian specialist named Hai-Jin had told Soo-Jin about it just that morning. They are suffering from a psychological condition we have never seen before, Hai-Jin had said. They have lost their entire support system. Imagine a person who has been part of a group mind their entire life suddenly being isolated. Every thought they have is their own. Every emotion they feel completely alone. It is like a weight pressing down on them constantly. Some of them had committed suicide. Hai-Jin had counted 17 confirmed cases, and she suspected there were more that had not been reported yet. We understand that your people are suffering, Soo-Jin said to the Valorian representatives. We are doing everything we can to help them. We have psychologists and medical specialists working with them. We are trying to help them adapt to individual consciousness. You should help them return to the collective, one of the Valorians said. You should reverse what your weapon has done. We cannot, He-Jin interjected from where she sat. The neural damage is permanent. The connections that linked them to the collective cannot be repaired. We can help them learn to be individuals, but we cannot make them part of the collective again. The Valorians were silent for a long moment. When they finally spoke, their voices were different. They sounded less unified, more desperate. Then you have committed genocide, they said. You have destroyed an entire civilization. You have violated every treaty and law of the Galactic Council. Humanity will answer for this. The general stood up. Humanity will do what it must to survive. You started this war. You invaded our space. You killed our people. Yes, we found your weakness. Yes, we used it against you. That is war. That is what happens when one species tries to destroy another. But we did not try to destroy you to turn you into something you were not, the Valorians replied. We invaded to expand our territory. We killed to achieve our goals. But we did not try to change your fundamental nature. You did. You took our people and ripped their minds apart. You made them something they were never meant to be. Sujin felt something crack inside her chest. Because the Valorians were right. That was the truth that everyone in the room had been avoiding. It was not about self-defense anymore. It was about the consequences of what they had done. We will keep the Cascade Pulse, the general said coldly. It will serve as a deterrent. Any further Valorian aggression will result in its deployment. If you value your civilization, you will withdraw from this sector of space and never return. The meeting broke down after that. The Valorians demanded the weapon be destroyed. The humans refused. A new stalemate had formed. It was not peace, but it was not active war either. It was something in between. A cold war, an armed détente, each side knowing that one wrong move would result in total catastrophe. When the meeting ended, Sujin walked through the station's corridors with He-Jin. What is going to happen to them? Sujin asked. To the individualized Valorians? I do not know, He-Jin replied. Some of them are adapting. I have seen a few who are starting to think, to question, to grow as individuals, but most of them are just trying to survive each day. They are learning to think alone, and it is breaking them. Is there anything we can do? Yes, He-Jin said. We can stop treating them like prisoners. We can stop treating them like enemies. We can show them that being an individual is not a curse. We can help them learn that they can choose their own path. We can give them something to live for besides just survival. Sujin stopped walking and looked at her friend. You have an idea. Maybe, He-Jin said. What if we created a place, a settlement, a place where the individualized Valorians could go and learn to be themselves without judgment, a place where humans and Valorians could live together and learn from each other. Not a prison camp, not a refuge, a community. The military will never allow it, Sujin said. Then we change the military's mind, He-Jin replied. We show them that there is another way forward. We show them that this war does not have to continue. We show them that even the people who have been the most damaged by the Cascade Pulse can become something new. Something better. Sujin thought about this. It was crazy. It was impossible. It would never work. But it was also the only thing she had heard in weeks that gave her hope. And hope was something that was becoming very rare in this galaxy. All right, Sujin said. Let me talk to Ji-Woo. If anyone can make this happen, it will be her. The medical facility was clean and quiet. Ye-Jun sat on the edge of a hospital bed, swinging her legs back and forth. She was thinking. Thinking was something she had never done before the Cascade Pulse. Well, that was not exactly true. She had thought before. But her thoughts had been different. Her thoughts had been part of a larger consciousness. Every idea she had was shared instantly with thousands of other minds. She never experienced doubt or confusion because doubts and confusions were resolved by the collective immediately. Now everything was confusion. Everything was doubt. Yejun's body was pale gray with a smooth texture that looked almost like stone. She had 4 arms which hung at her sides in ways that human bodies could not bend. She had been a soldier in the Valorian military, though she still did not fully understand what that meant. She had orders. She obeyed them. She did what the collective wanted. And then the cascade pulse had struck, and suddenly she was alone in her own mind, and the orders stopped making sense. Heijin entered the room carrying a tray of food. Yejun did not need to eat in the way that humans did. Her species converted energy directly from a chemical source. But Heijin had explained that she should try earth food anyway, that it was part of understanding what it meant to be individual. "Hello, Yejun," Heijin said warmly. "How are you feeling today?" Yejun looked at her with 2 of her 4 eyes. "I do not know how to answer that question anymore," she said. "Before, when I was connected, I never had to ask myself how I was feeling. The collective simply knew. Now I have to figure it out by myself, and I do not know how to do it." This had been happening more and more in the past few weeks. The individualized Valorians were starting to speak. They were asking questions. They were beginning to think about their own existence. "Feelings are not something you have to figure out," Heijin said, sitting down beside her. "They just happen. You experience them, and they are there." "But what do I do with them?" Yejun asked. "Before, if I had a feeling, the collective would help me understand it. We would process it together. Now I have them, and they just sit inside me, and I do not know what they mean." Heijin thought about this. She had studied Valorian physiology and neurology her entire career, but she had never studied what it meant to be alone. No human had ever had to teach another human how to be alone. It came naturally. But for a Valorian, being alone was not natural. It was a violation of everything that made them what they were. "Tell me about the feelings," Heijin said. "Start with today. How are you feeling right now?" Yejun was quiet for a long time. Her 4 eyes looked at Heijin, then away, then back again. It was clear she was thinking hard about the question. "I feel scared," she finally said. "I feel sad. I feel confused. I feel angry. Is that right? Is that how feelings work?" "Yes," Heijin said. "That is exactly right. And what are you angry about?" "About what you did to us," Yejun said. And the words came faster now. "You took something from us. You took the connection. You made us alone. You made us suffer. And now I am supposed to be grateful for it? I am supposed to be grateful for the pain?" Heijin did not try to defend herself. She did not try to explain that it was the only way to survive. She simply listened. "I was never alone before," Yejun continued. "I did not know what alone meant. I did not know that it was possible to feel this sad, this scared, this angry. In the collective, we did not feel any of these things because there were too many of us. One person's sadness was so small compared to thousands of other minds. Now my sadness is everything. My fear is everything. There is nothing to dilute it." Tears began to fall from Yejun's eyes. This was new. Valorians did not cry. Their physiology did not allow it. But somehow, here, now, Yejun was finding a way. "I want to stop thinking," Yejun said. "I want to go back to being part of the collective. I want to stop feeling like this." Heijin reached out and took one of Yejun's 4 hands. She did not say that it would get better. She did not say that time would heal this wound. She did not know if either of those things was true. "There are other Valorians here," Heijin said instead. 17 of them. They are all struggling the way you are struggling. They are all learning to be alone. Would you like to meet them? Would you like to know that you are not the only one going through this?" Yejun looked at her. "We would still be alone," she said. "Even if we were together, we would still be separate minds. That is different from being connected." "Yes," Haijun agreed. But it is something. And maybe that is where we start. Maybe we start with individuals learning that they can exist near other individuals, that they do not have to be connected to feel part of something. Over the next weeks, something strange began to happen. The individualized Valorians started to form friendships. They started to talk to each other, not as a collective consciousness, but as separate beings sharing their experience. It was painful and difficult and awkward in ways that nothing had ever been awkward before. But it was also the beginning of something new. One day, Yejun asked to meet with Jiwoo. The request went up through channels. It was approved. And soon, Yejun found herself sitting across from the woman who had created the weapon that had destroyed her world. "Thank you for agreeing to see me," Yejun said carefully. "I did not think I would agree," Jiwoo replied. "I thought you might try to kill me." "I considered it," Yejun said. "But then I realized something. If I killed you, I would just be seeking revenge. I would be acting like the collective tells us to act. I would be following orders from my anger. And I want to try something different. I want to choose what I do next." Jiwoo leaned forward slightly. "What do you want to choose?" "I want to know why," Yejun said. "Why did you do this to us? I have read about the invasions. I understand that we attacked you. I understand that we killed your people, but there were other ways to defend yourselves. Why did you choose this way? Why did you choose to break us apart?" Jiwoo took a long time to answer. "Because I knew that if I did not, more humans would die. And I knew that if the war continued, eventually one side would try to destroy the other completely. I thought that if I could give you the ability to think for yourselves, to make your own choices, maybe you would choose peace." "But I did not choose peace," Yejun said. "I chose pain and confusion and loneliness." "No," Jiwoo said, "you chose to survive, to live through something that should have broken you, and you chose to meet with me instead of trying to kill me. Those are all choices. Those are all things that an individual Valorian would do. The collective consciousness never had to make those choices. It just did what was right for the Valorian species. But you get to decide what is right for you." Yejun considered this. "That is a terrible gift," she said finally. "Yes," Jiwoo agreed. "It is." "But it is still a gift," Yejun said. She looked down at her hands. "I want to ask you something. I want to help the other Valorians. I want to help them learn how to be alone. I want to help them find meaning in individual consciousness the way I am learning to find meaning. Would you help me?" Jiwoo did not hesitate. "Yes. Tell me what you need." And that was how the Valorian human settlement was born, not as a prison or a camp or a demonstration of victory, but as a place where beings from two species could learn to live together. Where individualized Valorians could discover who they were when they were not connected to a collective. Where humans could learn that their enemy was not evil or wrong, just different. It was not perfect. It was messy and difficult and full of conflict. But it was a beginning. It was hope.